In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how I made this pro-style cake for my cousin's 40th birthday. She loved it so much, so now I'm going to share with you exactly how I made it step by step so that you can make it too. And the best part is I got all of the decor from Amazon, so it was super easy. So let's get started and make some cake. So getting started here, first and foremost, bake your cake layers using whatever recipe that you prefer. It really doesn't matter for this cake what you use. The key to this cake is using 6-inch cake pan. So if you're using a box cake like I do, I use a doctored recipe, then one box will fill 3 6-inch cake pans. So the 6-inch cake pans is gonna provide you with that nice height to the cake and make it look really professional. I also bake these layers several days in advance, and this is something that I do with every single cake that I make. But baking cake layers ahead of time allows you to save really valuable time when you need it the most. You can really spend time decorating the cake exactly how you want it. Moving on to the frosting, you'll want to use a crusting buttercream for this cake because of the layer design that we're creating. And a crusting buttercream just means that the frosting hardens when it's chilled and it won't blend in when another layer of frosting is applied on top of it. I always use American buttercream for my cakes. It's so easy to work with and it tastes delicious. So if you want some tips on how to make it, check out the video that I linked for you in the description below, and I give you all of my tips and tricks on how I make my own. The next step in making this 40th birthday cake is coloring the frosting. So let's go ahead and grab 2 bowls and add about a cup of vanilla frosting in each bowl. We're going to start with the darker color first, and then use that to create the lighter shade. This way we're staying in the same shade family. And I'm starting by adding 1 drop of Chef Master color in burgundy. And since this pink is a boho style pink, I'll want it to be a bit more muted. So I'm adding 2 drops of brown, 1 drop at a time, and mixing in between each drop to make sure I'm not adding too much. And then to create the lighter shade of that same tone, I'll take a bit of the pink from what I just mixed and add it to my bowl of plain vanilla frosting. So this will create a lighter shade of the color that I just made. And I'll repeat this process and keep adding the darker shade until I'm happy with that lighter shade color. Now let's place a dollop of buttercream in the center of your cake board. And this will act as an adhesive to keep the cake in place while you're decorating. So carefully place your first cake layer on top of that dollop, making sure that it's centered and secure. And now you can add a layer of buttercream on top of that first cake layer. So using an offset spatula, spread a generous amount of frosting evenly across the surface of the cake, and this will serve as the filling between your cake layers. So once you've done that and it's a nice even layer of buttercream, add the second cake layer. Gently place it right on top of the buttercream, just making sure it aligns with the bottom layer and everything is stacking nice and straight. And then I like to take my offset spatula and lock in those layers by spreading the extra frosting around the cake so that it keeps those 2 layers locked together. And then I go ahead and repeat the same exact process for the next layer. And sometimes you'll notice that you add a little bit of extra frosting on top, and that's okay. You can definitely just scoop it right off and then even out the buttercream once again. And since this cake is a 4-layer cake, I'm going to split it into 2 separate sections. So 2 layers of cake, a cardboard cake round, and then another 2 layers of cake. And that allows you to get double the amount of slices than you would for a typical 6-inch 3-layer cake. So I place the 6-inch cake board right in the center of the cake, and then I'll just restart the same process that I did for the initial 2 cake layers. So I'm adding another dollop of frosting, stacking the cake on top of it, and then repeating the same process with the filling. Once I get to the final layer of the cake, I'm going to flip the cake layer upside down so that the bottom is on the top, and that allows us to have a nice flat top to work with. At this point, I like to have frosting already set in a piping bag, And now I'll use that just to create my crumb coat and really lock in those layers and create a nice foundation for when we're ready to work on the final layer of our cake. The crumb coat is a really important part of this process. This is where we're trapping in all of the cake crumbs. So this helps us to avoid any cake crumbs getting in the final layer of frosting. And here you can see I'm still using my small offset spatula for this. And then I will move to using my bench scraper just to get that super smooth end finish. This part of the process does not have to be perfect, so it's okay if you still have some tiny imperfections. The focus here is really just filling in any large gaps. I finish off this process by just cleaning up the edge with my small offset spatula, and once that process is complete, I will take my cake, place it in the fridge or the freezer to set the frosting so that we're ready for the next part of the process. Okay, so now that the cake has been chilled, you'll know it's been chilled enough when you touch it and it's firm to the touch and there's no frosting transferred to your fingers. The next part of the process is adding the final layer of buttercream. So this will be the layer that is exposed and the layer that we'll add our decorations to. So you can apply this layer however you're comfortable, as long as you make sure the layer is applied evenly and it's thick enough so that you're able to smooth it out with the bench scraper. I find it much easier to add the buttercream to a large piping bag. This one is 18 inches, and then I apply rings around the cake. And this helps to get the most even coat, and it reduces the time it takes to smooth it out in the end. So I'll start by working from the bottom all the way to the top. You may need to refill the bag, especially if you're making a tall cake like this 4-layer one. So once I'm done adding the frosting, I'll smooth it out with a spatula, or you can simply just go straight to using the bench scraper. Now, something to keep in mind that the process with the bench scraper will take some time, so there's no need to rush it at all. It could take up to 15 minutes depending on how the process is going for you, and it will take several passes around. And after a few passes, you'll start to see areas that will need to be filled in with some more frosting. And repeat this process with your bench scraper and filling in any gaps until you're satisfied with how the coat looks. And my best advice for this is to not focus on perfection, because no cake is perfect. And always remember that one side of your cake will be shown, so if you have a really good side, just leave it be. If you have a metal bench scraper, now would be the time to heat it under hot water and then do another pass or two. The heat from the scraper will melt any imperfections and give the cake a really nice smooth layer. At this point, when you're done with that final coat, do not do anything with the top edge right now. So once you're finished with that, place the cake into the freezer for about 15 minutes. We want the cake to be super firm. This way, the sides are set and you won't mess it up when you're doing your decorations, and then it'll allow us to easily clean up the top edge. It's been 15 minutes in the freezer, so now I have gone ahead and run my metal bench scraper under hot water once again. And you can also use a sharp paring knife too, but basically I'll use the heat from the metal of my tool to slice off the extra buttercream on the top edge. Basically, this method will leave us with a sharp edge, which looks really nice and makes the cake look professional. And this is my favorite way to get sharp edges on my cakes. Next, we're going to grab the light pink color that we created earlier and apply it starting around the center of the cake. You can take it all the way to the bottom if you prefer and you have enough, but this will serve as that bottom portion of the layered look that we're going for. So once you're finished adding that light pink layer, pop it into the freezer for 5 to 10 minutes to set this layer, and then we're going to repeat the same exact process with that darker color, starting from the bottom and then working our way up, slightly overlapping with that light pink. If we didn't put the cake in the freezer between adding those two colored layers, then we wouldn't have this layered look and it would have blended the two colors together. Chill the cake once more after you've added the darker pink, and once it's set, you can use a stencil To add some dimension to the bottom layer, this part is completely optional, and I say this because using a stencil can be tricky and frustrating. So if you want to leave this part out, you can simply not add anything, or you can add some piping detail if you want. Either way, it won't affect the overall look of the cake. Now for the finishing touches to make this a true 40th birthday cake. This topper is from Amazon. It's perfect because it's gold and it goes with the overall theme, and it is a nice glittery addition to the cake. And I also got these faux boho style flowers from Amazon, and they really made decorating with flowers so much easier. You don't have to worry about wrapping the stems. Just clean off the plastic part so that you don't get any dust or dirt into the cake. I'm arranging them however I think they look best. There's no rhyme or reason, but I am adding dollops of frosting where I'm placing the flowers to help secure them into place. The faux flower set comes with a bunch of different floral sizes and colors, so you can choose as many or as few as you'd like. So after you've finished adding the flowers, your cake is done, and it came out so perfect and so cute, and we really achieved that boho style 40th birthday cake look. If you make this, please let me know. I'd love to see how yours came out, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.